All right, well, good afternoon now. This video was originally shot in the morning, and due to some kind of technical glitch, many of you noticed online that it didn't start until we were into the presentation. Luckily, it actually started on the first content slide, but I did want to go back and share with you some of the thoughts that I had leading up to that first slide. And really, my first thought was about this room that we're standing in here in the forum. 1 month from Wednesday will be the 7th anniversary of the first time I stepped into this room on April 25th of 2013 when I came as a candidate for president here. And I was so excited to be here. This was the job that I had wanted for years and years and years from the time that I came to know this college and this community. And it just seemed too good to be true that I was going to get to stand here. When I arrived, I was thinking, well, maybe we've set our expectations too high, but we hadn't. The faculty and the staff and the administrators at this college are student focused. They love what they're doing, and our community is a better place because we're here. I'm honored to be a part of this college, and I can't imagine a better group of people that I would want to work with while we face a crisis of the scale that we're facing today. We've all been thinking, I know you're talking with your families, we're all nervous for our family members, for our friends, for our neighbors, for our students and our coworkers, and it's a frightening time. We can't sugarcoat that, but I know that the actions that we've been taking over the last month, and specifically in the last 2 weeks, to move our instruction to a remote modality is going to make our college better, it's going to make our students safer, it's going to make our staff and faculty safer, and it's going to provide the access for our students to actually be able to go forward and transfer to those four-year universities without a loss of continuity, for our CTE students to get their certificates and go to work, for our law enforcement officers to be able to take those jobs that are waiting for them in June, and for our nurses to be there at the end of the year when we really need those nurses. What we're doing is a great thing for our community. And we're going to be able to do it in a way that be a little less efficient. We're going to do it remotely. We're going to find ways for everybody that we can to do their work from home. Some of our folks are going to have to be here, and we're practicing all the social distancing ideas that we're supposed to. I thought my family and I were talking about 9/11 and what happened on that horrible day and the aftermath that came after that. I happened to be involved in a public policy job in Utah working for the legislature. And the weeks and weeks and weeks that went by as we tried to make the budget work for the state and we tried to cope to the new reality. Very similar to this kind of experience, only now we look at this and this is magnified, I can't tell you how many times. But what's interesting to me is that if you look at our stats, 70% of our students are under the age of 24. 70% of our credit students have no working memory of 9/11 and what happened after that. This is going to be their life-changing 9/11, and they're going to think back to the time they were at Allen Hancock College and how they had to complete their programs in a remote fashion so that they could continue on their educational path. I know everyone here is dedicated to the mission we serve, and we're going to get through this. It's going to be a good learning experience for all of us. It's going to be hard. There's going to be a lot of frustration. What I can assure you is that we've pulled together like you would expect us to. We know that our constituency leaderships from faculty, from staff, from the confidential supervising administrative team have put their own time and energy into making the best plan possible, and we're going to continue to follow our shared governance principles because that's really what we need to do. Your cabinet team has put in an exhaustive amount of hours planning and preparing and training and asking what if so that we can answer the questions that folks are going to have. Even with all of that preparation, our organization is too complex to just stop and have one person or one small group of people make decisions. Everybody's going to have to look at what's in the best interest of the students and what's in the best interest of the safety of our faculty and staff. That's got to be our highest priority for the next 3 months. So we're going to switch back over to the conversation that we had earlier today. It actually caught up with the slide that you're going to see up online in a second that talks about what we did to get started on the brief timeline. We started talking about this in late February, early March, as colleges started to talk about going remote or going online and how that works, and we worried about our students, especially in those CTE programs. How do you teach welding online? How do our nursing students do their rotations without having access to the hospitals? So we started working on it in a way that we reported on March 10th to the Board of Trustees what we were planning to do. Following that meeting at about 7:30, 8 o'clock that night, we had a group of students, faculty, administrators, and staff who stayed behind and talked about what are some of the options we could have to serve our students. It was almost an inspirational meeting to see that number of folks who were focused on the one thing that we always focus on, our students. And from that came a March 11th message to the faculty that asked them to begin to think about how can they offer their courses in a remote modality. It could be online, it could be through a teleconference, it could be through Zoom, it could be through Connected. There's a whole host of ways to do it. Even just a basic little phone conference could work for our students. That messaging went out almost 2 weeks ago now, and the faculty got right to it. I've heard great stories from all across campus, from social and behavior sciences, STEM, the math areas, our language areas. Everybody is really trying to pitch in and figure out a way that we can provide a rigorous level of instruction for our students. Following that, on the Friday, right before our spring break, the Santa Barbara County Schools decided to close the K-12 schools throughout our county. San Luis Obispo County Schools followed soon after, and we knew we had one thing in our back pocket, which was the ability that our spring break was up, and we had a week with students off campus for us to meet with constituency leaders and come up with a plan. On Monday, March 16th, we had that meeting. We actually had it in this room, and there were people here. And we were socially distancing, and we were having a conversation about what we can do to move forward. And out of that came the decision to extend spring break by a week and require faculty to start moving all of their lecture classes into a remote modality. So that's been going on. I know the faculty were already working on it, and now that's accelerated. Today we had our first day of training, both for instructional faculty and student services faculty. You'll see the results of that coming very soon. And then after we made our emergency declaration, we really thought about, we're on spring break. Our staff had lost their classified staff week. We gave an additional holiday to our staff on Thursday the 19th, thinking that we had a really good plan in place coming back on Monday. And then Wednesday night, the governor announced the shelter-at-home order, which kind of threw everything into a whirlwind. Left us on the weekend, again, meeting with faculty, administrators, staff, lots of management meetings about how we organize our work in a way that can be done remotely. And it changed the nature of how we're doing our training. On Wednesday morning, we were able to say we could do social distancing and have people with underlying health conditions just not attend the training. By Wednesday night, we didn't have that option anymore. So this is, I can't tell you how grateful I am for the fact that our instructional technology team have really stepped up. Brian Dill's running the camera. He's done a lot of great work to make sure that we can get these kind of videos out, but also to do the Canvas training. Fred Patrick and Anna Rice have been in working on training and ConnectEd and helping people figure out how they can move their classes into a remote modality. We've really seen a real surge in people saying we can get things done and we can do it in a really timely manner. So as you watch the rest of this, I hope you'll be able to follow along with where we were. It should go seamlessly. I'm grateful to work with everyone on this campus. It's truly a meaningful place. We are the most important institution to northern Santa Barbara County. The things that we do here transforms our county, transforms our community, and we're changing the odds for all of our community because of the work you do every day. And I look forward to us being able to have a big barbecue and party when this is all over, and hopefully that'll be sometime sooner rather than later. So thank you for what you're doing, and we'll get on with the rest of the presentation. This is our proclamation of a campus state of emergency. As I said, it came on March 16th. This provides us with the ability to access state and federal funds in the future, perhaps. It also provides us some flexibility with our policies so that we can move in a little more streamlined fashion because the circumstances are changing so fast. We've been relying a lot on what the Fire Academy teaches us. I have Andy Dinsmore. I might turn it into my ringtone. Andy says, "You will not rise to the occasion. You will default to the level of training." And we've been training for this eventuality. We've had campus-wide training sessions on emergency operations. We include staff and faculty and students in those trainings. We've done trainings for earthquakes. We've done trainings for active shooters. We've done training for chemical spill. We practiced what we need to do, and that we've been able to set up our emergency operations center in order to support that. This is what we've done so far. In the Emergency Operations Center, we've made a few decisions. We want to make sure that we're supporting our students, faculty, and staff that are dealing with the crisis. We want to make sure that our decisions protect your health, protect the environment that you're working in or the students are studying in. We've been told, and we are still told, to follow the guidance of the Centers for Disease Control, the federal California Department of Health, and our local health department, the Santa Barbara County Health Department. And we've been doing that. That's been our basis. We're not epidemiologists. We don't have epidemiologists on campus. So we've really been working with our local health departments in making decisions that promote the health and well-being for our faculty, staff, and students, and for our community at large. We're participating in the countywide task force on the COVID-19 outbreak. Lauren Milborn from Public Affairs and Chief Kathy Farley have been participating in those countywide conference calls, Zoom meetings for 3 weeks now, I think. You've probably gotten more emails than you ever thought you would get, even by our standards. It's really important that you're sorting your emails by date because we're constantly updating the information, and it's going to be really important that you are checking the email communication, not just from me, but from the VPs in your area and from your supervisors, so that you can have the latest information. And when we talk about our training and defaulting to our level of training, we want to make decisions with our values of shared governance. This is not a time for us to get offline and start doing things without involving all of our campus constituents. So we want to make sure we're doing that. So last week, as we got to the end of the week and there was literally nobody on campus, we got an order from the governor announcing the shelter at home. And this is based on the California Department of Health and their recommendation and what that means. So let's go to the next slide there. The college is actually identified as critical infrastructure. The governor said that we should maintain continuity of operations for critical infrastructure. And what you'll see is that if we go to the next slide, the government facility sector is where you find higher education. We'll do the next one. You see there. So our challenge is that we've been asked by the governor to maintain continuity of operations in a way that allows us to do it through social distancing and remote instruction. Remote instruction is a lot of it's going to be online. That doesn't necessarily have to be the only way we're going to do it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go forward now. Our continuity of operations means that our essential functions have to continue. Okay, this is things like payroll. I think we're all really interested in making sure payroll continues. It's some of our facilities work, some of our core student services work. However, it doesn't mean it has to be done on campus, right? So to the extent possible, we have spent the weekend with our management team and even with one meeting with faculty to talk about how we can provide services off-site. Other functions, those that are not considered to be essential business continuity functions, are still supposed to be maintained, but they must be moved off-site. We will not be doing that. And we're such a complex organization. There's no way to say this is how we do off-site other functions. So everyone is going to have to work with their supervisors, their deans, and their vice presidents to talk about how the work that you do on a daily basis that is important for what we do here can still be done remotely, primarily from your home. Go to the next one. We want to be sure, regardless of whether you're in an essential function or another function, that if you have underlying conditions, kin care needs, you have a need that you can't be around other people during this crisis, talk with your manager, and we're going to make it work so that you can have an opportunity to move your work off-site, or we'll figure out somebody else that can step in and do your role. As I said, there's going to be, we have 800 employees right now that includes our part-time faculty, and there's probably 800 different ways that we need to figure out how to do our work going forward. Let's go to the next one. So, for our faculty, we're moving to remote instruction. And primarily, and in the media, you see remote instruction, everybody's going online. That's going to probably be our primary method. We have some really good online technology. We have an instructional instructional design team that can help you set up the online training. We have some great faculty who are doing some wonderful things online. But that's not the only way it has to work. Okay, you might do your instruction online. You might use conference calls. We have our ShoreTel system here on campus has capacity for us all to do conference calls where students could just dial into a phone like they did in the old days, where faculty could put the assignments up on the Canvas shell, have the students read it, and then do have a lecture, interactive lecture on a phone. We've got Zoom. Lots of Zoom jokes flying around the internet this week. Maybe we'll order some T-shirts that say Zoom University or something when this is all done. Our instructional technology team moved really quickly to buy a program called ConnectEd that's part of the Cranium Cafe. We had about a dozen faculty members already using this program. We're going to get some really good training. It is really intuitive conference call, video conferencing tools that you can use right out of the box. And maybe we even do chats. You might want to set up chat rooms in your Canvas shell, do some live chats. Every course has its Canvas shell open. Okay, every course already has its Canvas shell open. If you're a faculty member that's never used Canvas, if you're a part-time faculty member that maybe hasn't used the Canvas, talk to somebody in your department, somebody who's teaching another section of the same class you teach, or somebody who's used it. You can cut and paste, and you can borrow shells from other people and rearrange that. There's going to be a lot of training about that today. And we need to maintain your office hours via phone. Okay, so, or you can do video chats or whatever, but office hours, let your students know how they can contact you during office hours so that they can ask the questions they need to ask. It's the next button. I think the reason we're asking you to maintain this, and we want to maintain synchronized instruction as much as possible. Our students chose to take face-to-face classes from you. You're experts in your field. Your classes are hard enough as it is, and to suddenly switch students into a brand new format and a brand new modality is going to be difficult. Maintaining that regular interaction with the students is going to be really key to having them be successful. So that's going to be work, and I know this work is already going on. I've seen some really cool stuff coming out of our STEM areas and social and behavior sciences and nursing, and I mean all over campus. We're seeing some really innovative ideas for how we can make instruction work for our students during this time. Let's go to the next slide. Part two, that's kind of goes with what I was just saying. We're being flexible and creative. Figure out how you can provide that instruction. I think it's important to recognize that the order limits face-to-face instruction. It doesn't necessarily say you can't come to campus. So if you can't get the equipment at home, or you don't have a setup at home that would allow you to do that, faculty could still come and teach in an empty classroom. You would be socially isolated, if you're full-time faculty, you could teach from your office if you don't have the equipment at home. So we have plenty of tools for you, and our IT department is working very diligently to get in new cameras, microphones, all the things you need to teach from a remote to your students. And if you've got that set up at home, that's wonderful. We can do it at home. Let's go to the next one. Counseling is also going to convert to remote modality using similar options. Even to those where it's a one-on-one interaction, faculty might choose to use their phone or an iPad or something to do a face-to-face video chat with the students. That student connection with our counselors is really important, and they value that, and we see that replicated when we talk to students about who really made an impact on them. It's their favorite classroom faculty and their counselors, right? So we're going to have to figure out and make sure that we know how to access those appointments for students. And I really don't have any idea how that STAR system works. So work with Dean Teniente and work with Dr. Ornelas, and we'll make sure that our students have access to the counseling that they need. Let's do the next one. Service faculty, similarly, we have service faculty both in student services and academic affairs. Work with Dr. Ornelas, work with Dr. Curry to set up your instructional time. We've already got Fred Patrick and Anna Rice who are focused on helping you with the distance education component, and so they've already worked that out. Probably all the folks, and that's a handful of people. Let's go to the next one. If you're staff, you should be probably your supervisor has already contacted you. If not, contact your supervisor and determine what needs to be done. How you can do your work from home. We have, again, a variety of options for you. We have IT equipment available for you so that you can, we can turn your computer on for you, and you can sit at home and it looks just like your computer terminal when you're sitting at home. So we want you to be in a place where you can still perform your job, but you can do it at a remote location, and you'll have to work with your supervisor and manager to see how that works. What's next? Students and student workers. Students should not be on campus this week unless somebody specially requests them to come on. We are going to continue to ensure that student workers get paid. And there's some complexity to that, but by and large, we'll know that student workers are getting paid if they're through the federal work-study program, if they're through our own on-campus student worker program. Those students will continue to receive their pay. And let's go to the next one. Oh, yeah, Dr. Curry's here. He's reminding me about bullet 2. We know that a lot of our students don't have access to the internet. We know that a lot of our students do a lot of their email and digital communication off of a phone. We also know that you can't write a research paper on your phone. Well, I guess you probably could, but it would take a while. So we are going to open up computer labs for students that will ensure social distancing, that will be regularly cleaned and sanitized for those students that need to come in and do course-specific work. These will not be labs for them to come in and browse and do Facebook and stuff like that. These will be only for instructional purposes to support their ability to complete their programs. That plan will be developed this week. We've got a week to figure this out. And there's already some good ideas floating around about how we make that happen in a way that's safe. And we'll be using some of our other computer labs that aren't normally open to the public for that. Okay, I think that's good. We'll go to the next one. So for the end of the year, if you have an event that was scheduled from now to May 15th, you can essentially assume it's canceled. That's what the Santa Barbara County Department of Health told us to do, and now statewide, we can't have any gatherings over a certain size. We're going to try to wait until the first, maybe the second week of April to see if we can still get commencement scheduled and kind of see how things are going. I'll be honest, it doesn't look good, but we don't want to make that decision until we absolutely have to. You know, we all know there's a lot of moving parts to that. Next slide. There are a lot of tools out there for you. You can see just a handful here. One of them is Xfinity Wi-Fi. If you could communicate with your students that Xfinity has opened up Wi-Fi hotspots, and there's a map on the Xfinity page where students can find locations where there are wireless access points for Xfinity and they can log in. If you can share that with your students, it'd be fantastic. All of the commercial sites are readily available for students. And we need to think about even our students who are using their handheld devices, their phones, for their internet access, don't have unlimited data by and large, right? So even listening to the 45 minutes of something like this could suck up their entire data plan. So we want them to be able to have access to Wi-Fi. They can come on campus. We have Wi-Fi access out in parking lots. We're going to identify the best parking lots for that. So when classes resume, if students need that Wi-Fi, they can come to us, or they could use that map and go to a local business that has the Wi-Fi turned on, and they'll have access to it through that. So there's Adobe Scan, and there's some other scanning software for your scanning apps for your phone. If you're working remotely and you need to scan something, I downloaded the Adobe Scan this weekend, and it works great. It's really awesome, and it'll scan a whole variety of things and transform them in a way that makes them really easy for you to then manipulate on your computer or email to people that need it. We're expanding, and I probably should have put it on the slide, SharePoint, Microsoft Teams. Those are two products that we have that have been growing in utilization. When we're all done with this, we should probably all be experts in SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. Those have really intuitive chat features. Microsoft Teams can allow you to set up a chat group with your colleagues that you normally sit by on a day-to-day basis, so that you can have real-time chat with them throughout the day, even though you're each in your own home. So Andy, be watching out for information from Andy Specht about how you can use that. It's already set up. You already have access to it, and everyone has it free through our license, just using your Allen Hancock College email account. It's the last slide. So today there's going to be some faculty training opportunities, and we're going to start at 10 a.m. with a YouTube how to use Canvas training. The address was sent to you from Dr. Curry. Check your email for that. There will be another one on at 12:30 on that Connects Ed that we were talking about earlier. That's going to be really a really good tool for all of us. So and also you get it on YouTube. And then student services faculty, their meetings start at 10 a.m. It's through Zoom. Dr. Ornelas sent out an email on that has the Zoom address for it. You can click on that, and it will log you in automatically. So before we close, I want to answer questions, and I think hopefully, Brian, I didn't mess this up, that we've had the email address on the screen. So we're not going to go through and answer, I teach in classroom X, the individual stuff, we talk to your dean, talk to your supervisor, if it really pertains to you, because we have so many unique situations on campus, we can't go through every single one. But I'm going to ask Lauren to read a couple of the questions that have come out that have a more global application, and we'll answer some of those. So, Lauren? No questions? We'll give them a minute. Give them a minute. I'll have some coffee. My wife says I had too many. What's that? The links are below the video for the email? Oh, there you go. So Brian's put up some links there below the video so that you can find your training. The link to the Xfinity map, which is a pretty cool service. Yeah, we don't say, yeah. So we'll. Do I have anything right now? Oh. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Aaron Cryer asks if you can please share the information again about how students can access Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so the Wi-Fi access, the link, it should be an Xfinity link right below your video. You should be able to see that, and you can share that out on your Canvas shells, and we'll make that more widely available.
Okay. Are we still ending the semester on planned dates?
So we are going to push the semester back a week. That's a good question. We're going to push the semester back 1 week, and we will be ending the following Friday to ensure that we all have enough time to get our students through and we don't run into any bureaucratic glitches with the Department of Education. We will also be starting term 4 a week late. It'll start next Monday. It was supposed to start today. We're also working on, and this is really Dr. Curry is working on this, a testing center, so that there might be a place where students, so faculty could actually, if you want to administer tests remotely, but it needs to be more secure than just opening up an online platform, we're going to try to set up some testing centers where students could come in, take a test in isolation. We would probably want to wait for another couple of weeks before we actually have students start gathering again and see where we are on the social distancing plan, but I think that's going to be a good opportunity.
Okay. What about the options for pass, no pass, incompletes, and drops?
So pass, no pass, incompletes, drops. Let's start with drops. We're going to be as flexible as we can with our students. We're going to move back the drop dates. Please tell the students, if they at all can, not to drop the classes yet. They've gone this far through their program. We want them to be able to finish. And we're going to drop back. We're going to move the drop date back. I'm sorry, so that we'll have more time for that. We will also, if any student is dropping that has issues related directly to the crisis, we're going to figure out ways to give them administrative W's so that it doesn't impact their transcript. And there's going to be there's a lot of manual work that goes into that. We're also working on pass, no pass for some of our CTE programs. That might be an option. Faculty, you're the experts in how we do that, and that'll be something to work out with your deans and with the vice president. I'm personally working on a statewide plan that we want to lobby Cal State for and the UC system about accepting pass, no pass grades in core classes for transfer, if that's our only option. You know, given the history of the responsiveness that we get sometimes when we deal with large state institutions like that, that's probably not our best option. I did get a great email last night from Sean Abel, the dean, who was talking about the math faculty and how the math faculty have really been working on how they can ensure that students can get a letter grade and get the knowledge that's associated with that letter grade before they transfer. So we're grateful to the math faculty for that. That's the STEM area is one of my biggest fears about us sending a student to Cal Poly or to a UC without, and they get there and they're not prepared, and through no fault of their own or our faculty, just because of the situation. The classes we're offering there are so difficult, and the material is so dense that interaction with the faculty is key. So thank you to the math faculty and everyone else who's doing that.
We have a comment asking for you to please mention the invitation students will get to Zoom on Thursday and Friday to share updates and resources. If you could talk about that.
The Zoom for students?
For students to get that Dr. Ornelas is organizing, I believe.
Oh, that's right. So there will be more information coming out Thursday, Friday. We'll have an opportunity for students to join a Zoom meeting live with Dr. Ornelas and Student Services. And Dr. Curry, I think, is going to be part of that. He is now. we want students to be able to join in through Zoom. For those of you who haven't used Zoom, some of us now are experts, and so we forget. One of the things about both ConnectEd and Zoom video conferencing is students can use their phones for that. That's one of the reasons we like it. They can either just call in or they can actually use the video feature on their phones. So we feel like that'll be a good opportunity for the students to join in. I think our license limits us to 300, so we might have to do multiples of those with students, but we'll get that done.
Is it safe to say that classes that are moving 100% online will remain so for the remainder of the semester? Yes.
So whatever we do right now, I think we should just plan on this. This is our modality for the rest of the semester. We don't want to. The disruption of flipping back is not going to work. This is just we're gonna ride this out through the end of the semester and do the best we can. What may, let's say we get to the 1st of May and the all clear is given and we can, then maybe the office hours will move back to a face-to-face, or faculty members will have a little better opportunity to engage with students. But I think we should assume this is going to be the modality going forward for the end of the year.
Okay. Will shipping and receiving still be operating?
Shipping and receiving are operating. We're going to need them to get all those cameras and microphones in. Jim Harvey and Eric Smith are meeting right after this. They've already been working over the weekend on figuring out how to make sure that the shipping and receiving function works in a way that is safe and protects all of us with those kind of materials. So.
Okay. Let's see. There's a question about the Xfinity. Is Xfinity making those hotspots available nationally or just locally? I'm not sure if we know that.
I think, yeah, the Xfinity is a national program, is what I understand, is that Xfinity has essentially opened up any, if there's I don't think they're at Starbucks, but if they were at Starbucks, that's what they're opening up. So, and my understanding, and Brian can give me a thumbs up maybe, is that even some residential Xfinity Wi-Fi spots can be opened up without it going, like somebody could pull up outside of my house and tap into the Wi-Fi through, yeah, they could piggyback on it. They wouldn't be in my Wi-Fi, they wouldn't be in my router, but they would actually have access to the internet through my router.
Right. Will students have access to our on-campus student tutors, or should we be referring them to use online sources?
So this week we're going to plan for how we get our student tutors set up. There's probably going to be a lot of FaceTime, video chat, telephone calls with that. But our student tutors, I think, are going to be really critical in this time, and our peer tutors in places like EOPS, where we're going to have to set them up in a way that can be done remotely.
Are we offering the EW option to students, and if so, will they receive a refund?
We haven't made a decision on that yet.
Okay. Will the live video training be available after today for faculty access?
We will. We do want, yeah, we're going to archive all of that. However, we are asking that as, part of your workday, you join that today, right? That's the live training so that you can ask questions in real time is going to be critical, and we want faculty to be participating in those live conversations.
Can students next week come to pick up packets or supplies for use during online instruction?
Yeah, I think actually this idea of when we say working remotely, there's still going to be some times where you have to come on campus. So we have to remember the key is face-to-face interaction. That's what we're trying to reduce to the greatest extent possible, is face-to-face interaction. So if you need students to come and pick up packets, they can come and pick up packets. Or what would be better probably is to post those in your Canvas shell, and if they need to print it, they can print it through Campus Graphics, and we'll find a way to make sure that's affordable for them if they want to do that. Maybe even free. I'll have to talk to someone, but it would really be better if you posted that into your Canvas shell so the students would have immediate access to it. But for some of our staff, so Melinda Martinez in my office, she came in today, gathered up a bunch of stuff she needs to work on today, and she went back home. There's a lot of paper that moves through my office that right now we haven't figured out a way to make all of that electronic. We're going to work on that, but so Melinda can come in, pick up her stuff, go back home, and that's avoided the face-to-face interaction there.
Can classified staff assist in other departments that are more impacted?
Yeah, so classified staff, and we've been talking to classified staff leadership. Some of the things that are happening on campus, we might actually ask some classified staff to come in and help with a different function than they normally do, or to do a different function from home. There's going to be a lot of different options for how we get to that.
I'm seeing some concerns come through about potential staff layoffs.
No staff layoffs. We will not be doing layoffs for staff. We know the budget, the California budget, is going to take a big hit. However, we have a great board of trustees, and we have had from the time I was here, that have really been prudent in managing the college's reserves. For those of you who were here in the Great Recession, we managed that without furloughs and without, I say we, that was you at that time, was managed without furloughs and without layoffs. There were some hiring freezes. We're probably going to do some hiring freezes, not just to save money, but just from the very nature of, our committee system is set up in a way that, we'd have to set up Zoom chats and all kinds of different things that may not be the best. But no, we should not be worried about layoffs. We have a reserve that would be able to carry us through at this point.
Is summer school still scheduled as planned?
We are still waiting. We've made some adjustments to the calendar. Dr. Ornelas will be sharing that with the calendar committee. We're working on other ways to deliver summer school at this point. So.
And then there's a couple questions about remote exams, how to administer proctored remote exams.
So there's a couple of ways we can do proctored remote exams. Probably it's best to talk to your dean and Dr. Curry, but if you wanted, if it's an online exam, I don't know how to do that, I'll be honest with you. That's been too long since I was in the classroom to do that. I know at my college in Utah, we did exams where you could actually leave the exam, either a paper copy or in person in a testing center. Students could come in and there would be a staff member there who would monitor and proctor the test that way. There's any number of ways. All the options are on the table, so if you can think of something that works for your students, tell us how to make it happen and we'll make it happen for you.
For small class sizes less than 10, is there still the expectation that we do not meet in person unless absolutely necessary until further notice?
That's correct. Yeah, no face-to-face classes for lecture. We do have an exemption for public safety in our allied health programs, at least the nursing side. I'm not sure that applies to the dental side. But we do have exemptions for those, as kind of goes back to that critical infrastructure. We have students that have they're ready to move into the workplace, kind of thinking we're going to need some nurses. So we need the nurses, but for now we're going to have those two programs will continue. The faculty are already working on how they can do those and promote social distancing, and we'll get those students through so that they can still pass the BRN, the NCLEX. Yeah.
Let's see. There's a question. There's a couple people are asking you to clarify how student workers will get paid, that situation.
We're working that out this week. So we're working out how we'll pay student workers during over the course of this week. I think the main thing is we know those students rely on their paychecks, and while we rely on the work they do, while they can't be on campus right now, we want to make sure that we don't make it even harder on them. We know how much our students struggle. And I can tell you, one of the great things about our community is that when it's time to help students, we step up. The foundation asked people to donate to the Student Emergency Fund last week or the week before. Over 3 days, more than $6,000 came in just from faculty, staff, and members of our college foundation. The foundation provided another $10,000 from the President's Circle on top of that, and we have student equity funds for another $10,000, so that when students get into a spot where they, can't pay rent or they need a bus pass or whatever that need is, we have some funds available specifically to help students access it.
So people are asking, how can they access funds for emergencies like the student emergency fund you were just talking about, but also for instructional supplies?
There's like $1 million in instructional supply money, right, in the lottery fund or something. We got plenty of instructional supply money. So all you got to do is talk to your dean, talk to your department chair. We'll get some stuff ordered. There is a form, because, it's the federal government, everything's got a form. That emergency declaration, there's a form called the ICS 214. Everything we buy in response to this gets put on that form. Every member of cabinet, so every vice president, the IT department, human resources, has a special budget code already now for purchases, and we'll be able to track all of those purchases as we go forward. Hopefully, if some FEMA money comes available, we can get to it. If not, we'll at least know what the impact was on our students. But we have lottery money in reserve that we can use for instructional supplies. We're going to identify toilet paper as an instructional supply.
There's a question about, are the dates for the opening of class search and registration still the same, or are they changing?
I believe we're changing those dates, but we'll send out some more communication about that. So that might get pushed back a little bit.
Okay. Let's see. There's a question, will student workers be paid for their actual hours worked? They could lose much needed income if they're not allowed to work their normal hours.
No, we're going to pay the student workers. Yeah, we'll pay the student workers. Yeah, scheduled hours. Yeah, they're scheduled hours. Yeah. Whatever hours they were normally scheduled, they'll be paid.
How will the youth dance classes, ballet, contemporary, tap be handled, and how will Magical Moments production be handled?
Yeah, I think a lot of that community ed stuff's going to be canceled. That's just not going to work.
How does this all apply to our concurrent enrollment courses and faculty? Are they held to the same protocols, Canvas teaching to the COR through the end of the semester?
They are, actually. We've been having good conversations with our K-12 partners about concurrent enrollment. Even on Friday morning, when they started talking about closing the K-12 schools, I immediately started calling the K-12, the high school superintendents and saying, hey, before you do this, we got to figure out how you're going to get your concurrent enrollment students through. And I was very clear with them that concurrent enrollment is a college class. And thanks to Tom Lamica and his team, I think they've got a plan in place that's going to work where those faculty members can still teach their classes. I know we had agreements with all of the districts except for Santa Maria, and I think we got one at the end of the week last week from Santa Maria High School District. So we're working on that. So if we don't have one from Santa Maria High School District, we're trying to get that resolved this week. But if the students can't complete to our course outline of record, we can't give them credit. That's the reality. It's just like they're Hancock students taking Hancock classes. And part of our whole emergency planning and the reason we train is so that we're able to make decisions that impact us in the long term, that we know we're doing the right thing.
There's a question about how do we contact students that aren't checking their email?
So our student government has been great. Tyler Little, our student body president, and Heidi Mendiola, our student trustee, have both been wonderful in getting information out to students. We're pushing things through Canvas. We're going to try to, when students log into their Canvas screens, they can see different information. Public Affairs has done a great job of sending students rave alerts. So there's Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. If a student hasn't seen a message, it's because they haven't turned on a device. We've been pushing things out to them, and we've been telling them to check their emails on a regular basis. And we're sending out instructions on how to forward their email, their Hancock email to their personal email, or however they want to get to that. We're working on getting that information to every single student that we can.
Can we come onto campus to pick things up?
Yes, you can come on campus to pick things up. The real key, again, is the order is to avoid face-to-face interaction. So we really want, and luckily for us, most of our offices and our spaces, provide some, 6 to 8 feet of distance. We don't necessarily want you coming in and working unless your essential function can't be put off campus. But if you need to come in and pick things up, that's perfectly acceptable. Talk to your supervisor, figure out your work day, and how you're going to do that from home.
Will there be Spanish instruction for Zoom access for any NESL students?
Yes, we're going to be doing some Spanish translation and an instruction for the ESL. Yeah, if you're teaching ESL, we want to take what we're doing and replicate that in a remote locality. So there will be an opportunity there for Zoom. Mm-hmm. The reality is, for a lot of those students, they're going to, hopefully they can use their phones to log in. Our most vulnerable students are the ones who are going to be hit hardest by this. That's kind of how it always ends up working out. But we're going to do everything we can to keep those classes moving forward for those students.
And then I believe Dr. Ornelas will be doing a session on how to do Zoom in Spanish on Thursday or Friday.
Okay, good.
Many students do not have access to a printer at home. Will we be able to have study guides and course materials printed to be available for students to pick up?
Yeah, we'll figure that out with Campus Graphics and how we can either print that at home, or they can if they can use it online, that's a better option, I think. But if they can't, we'll make it available to them.
There's some questions about will folks be able to get professional development training hours for the Canvas and the trainings today?
Yeah, we're going to count all of this whole week. This whole week when you show up, we do actually need to make sure we get sign-in lists or whoever. I don't know how we do that. I think Zoom records who was in the meeting. Yeah. So part-timers will report to the deans on their attendance. But yeah, for all of our faculty, this is going to count as professional development.
Jenny from the bookstore asks us to remind folks that students can order online at the bookstore website and get free shipping on all orders, no minimum purchase. There's also access to many free ebooks online at our website through Red Shelf. Also free return labels for rental books. We are shipping out orders daily.
Okay, good.
There's a question about how do we set up the phone messaging system.
So a couple of things. That's actually good. When you're working from home, and there's going to be, again, Andy's going to be sending some communication about this. All of our phones can be forwarded to another phone line. Okay, so you can set up your ShoreTel phone to forward to wherever you're working. So if you have a landline at home, you can forward it to your landline. If you want to forward it to your cell phone, you can do that. The one thing about the cell phone forwarding is your number will appear if you call back, your number appears. So you might want to set up a Google Voice phone number. It's super easy. It takes less than a minute to set up a Google Voice number, and it works just like a regular cell phone number. You can receive text messages, you can make calls and receive calls. It's free. So if you want to if you want to forward it to your cell phone and you don't want your cell phone number to be shared, that's fine. You can do that. We will, as we're working remotely, we need to still be in touch with folks. So having your phone availability is a good way to do that. If you have any questions about how to set up a Google phone line, just contact Andy. But I really think it's so simple. Even I figured out how to do it. So.
Will the fitness lab be open for the students who are taking those classes?
No, they will not. So.
How will things work for temporary part-time office workers?
So we're going to work on some of that this week. So.
Hold on, still got a lot of questions coming.
Okay. Well, we're getting close to 10. So. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I really think so. Let's do this. Lauren will filter through the questions that are coming in. and send them to the right spot. The real key is going to be engaged with your supervisor. Be engaged with your supervisor. They're going to have the information you need going forward. A lot of those big picture conversations are ongoing. We've actually solved a great deal of those, but we have a week. All right, today's Monday. We have a week to be prepared for classes to resume on the 30th. And I'm grateful to the faculty who've already been trying to find creative ways to teach their classes remotely in a way that supports our students. I'm grateful to the student services professionals that have been really thinking about how can we ensure that students aren't penalized through something that didn't happen to them. I'm grateful for Alex Young, our student health nurse, who has just been tirelessly working on behalf of our students to make sure the health center is prepared. This is an all-hands-on-deck crisis, and we've been talking a lot, and probably you have too at your homes. We all know somebody. We've all got parents and grandparents and relatives that we're worried about. We have colleagues here on campus that have underlying health conditions, and we want to protect everyone in the best way possible. As we were talking about what this was like, I think a lot of people have been making analogies to what happened on 9/11, and this for our students is going to be their version of 9/11. And if you think about it, 70% of our credit students are under the age of 24. 70%. 70% of our credit student body has no working knowledge of what happened on 9/11. Right? At best, they were 5 years old. So this is a whole new thing for them, and if you remember those days and the weeks afterwards where there was confusion and we didn't really know what to do, and it was a really hard time. And I was working for the Utah State Legislature then, and I thought that was the height of chaos as we were seeing our budgets crash and trying to figure out how to respond. And this is that time multiplied by I don't know how many factors, but it's all consuming. And just so you know, hopefully your constituency leaders, your administrators, your cabinet team are working tirelessly on this. We've had, I can't tell you, they've probably each had, especially your cabinet administrative team, and had probably 10 hours of Zoom calls this weekend, maybe more than that. I'm grateful to my family for the 7 hours I sat in front of my computer in the middle of our house, and they had to tiptoe around, trying not to disturb what we were doing. There's a lot of energy going into this, and we welcome suggestions. We welcome the help from all of the groups, because it's all of us together. We're gonna stick to our participatory shared governance model. We're going to make the best decisions we can, and I hope you'll be patient with us, because sometimes the best decisions we make this morning, by the afternoon, don't work anymore. This is a perfect example. When we announced how we were going to do this, it was okay to go to the Marion and spread everybody out and have our faculty in the same room, 2 seats in between everybody. That was perfectly acceptable when we decided to do this. And by Wednesday evening or Thursday evening, nope, you can't do that anymore. So we're trying our best to make this work. I strongly believe, and I know our faculty and staff, I know you believe this too, that if we're asked to remain doing our mission, we need to do it in a way that supports our students and ensures that when they complete their program here in May, that they're actually ready to transfer, they're ready to go into the workforce, and we'll have a supportive program for them. We're going to be around. You know how to find me. You know how to find your supervisors. Work with your supervisors. As we get closer to the end of the week, we may do another similar kind of conversation. I'll apologize in advance for all the emails you're going to get. But really be diligent. Please be diligent about checking your emails and working with your supervisors. Check your phones so that we can make sure that we're really going. We've got a week. It seems like we're daunting. We've got a week, but we've already spent 2 or 3 weeks working on this. So this is wrapping it up and finalizing our plans and moving forward. I know you can do it. I know you're going to be. I know we're going to come out the other side of this great, and our students are going to remember the great work that you did to make sure that they could complete their programs. With that, I'll say thanks. Stay healthy. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face, Bob. Anyway, so be healthy and get into some of those training rooms, and I'm excited to see what you come up with. Thanks.